2.5 years ago, we made the decision to move to Portugal over Spain, Italy, and France. Now, since then, a lot has changed. NHR, which is the preferred tax status for expats, has changed. Prices have gone up. Even the pathway to citizenship is currently under review. So the big question is, do we regret our decision? Knowing what we know now after living in Portugal for more than 2 years, how would we rank these countries today? That's what we're talking about in this video, and we're also going to tell you the one country we would strongly consider today that wasn't even on our radar just a few years ago.
Hi, we're Matt and Dawn. A few years ago, we decided we didn't want to retire, but we didn't want to put off our dreams of living abroad and traveling the world either. Today, we live, work, and travel from the Silver Coast of Portugal. On this channel, we talk about building a life of more time, location, and financial freedom. If you're ready to rewrite the rules of life after 50, we invite you to join us. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss a new video.
Now first, just a little bit of context about the criteria that we used to originally select a country a few years ago.
So our original criteria: safety, healthcare, the cost of living, and the climate, because maybe we're sensitive people. We didn't want it to be too hot in the summer or too cold in the winter. We wanted it to be year-round outdoor living. And after a lot of research, Portugal checked every box, specifically the Silver Coast of Portugal, which is where we chose to live.
Now, after more than 2 years of living here, we can report happily that Portugal definitely lives up to the hype in several areas. First of all, we feel very safe. It's a very safe country, and we feel very at ease here. The next one is healthcare. We have found the healthcare here in Portugal to be absolutely excellent, way better than the US. We have a couple of videos if you want to know more about that. And third is the climate and the beaches. We think that this is an absolute dream to live in, especially here where we are on the Silver Coast.
Well, some things have changed here in the last 2.5 years that we've been in Portugal. First, prices are up. Not just goods and services from a standard inflationary standpoint, but real estate prices are way up here in Portugal. Another thing is NHR changed. NHR being that favored tax treatment for retirees moving into Portugal. That expired last year, so it meant that, we qualified for it, but it means now that if you are coming into Portugal as a new resident, you wouldn't qualify for that favored tax treatment except in certain circumstances. That would have at least factored into our decision. It may not have been the deal breaker, but the math would have changed for us, and that would have been important to pencil out.
Now, something else that could potentially change is the pathway to citizenship, changing from 5 years to 10 years. Now, this hasn't been decided. It's currently under review at the time of this filming. However, this was a significant pro for Portugal for us. The ability to gain citizenship after 5 years. And that doesn't mean that we wanted to leave Portugal. We just knew that having that citizenship was going to give us more freedom to travel and move around in the EU. It's also worth noting, just as a side note, that Portugal, another significant factor for us is that Portugal allows dual citizenship with the US, which isn't true everywhere. This was something that was also really important to us. I'll also say that now that we have lived here for a little over 2 years, we've learned a lot. And there are a few things that we would consider as part of our criteria today that we didn't really think about when we first started this process. We'll talk a little bit more about those later in this video.
So if we were making the move today, would we still choose Portugal over Spain, Italy, or France? And if not, where would we choose to go? There are several things that all of these countries have in common. So the first is that the visa process, although it's different from country to country, it is all manageable. Second, universal health care is a reality in all 4 of these countries, so that is a plus if that is important to you. The third thing is safety, and while this is a little bit nuanced because in big cities in some of these countries it can be a little riskier than in other cities, in general, you can find a very safe place in any of these 4 countries. Safety for each of these 4 countries is rated much higher than it would be in the United States. And finally, the overall cost of living for any of these 4 countries is lower than frankly, just about any mid-size or major city in the US. So why do we ultimately rule out Spain, Italy, and France?
Now, obviously decisions like this are multifaceted and there's a lot that goes into it. So this is just kind of the highlight reel of why we ruled out some of the other countries, or at least decided that Portugal was a better fit. So the first one is Spain. Now, I think that Spain and Portugal are neck and neck in a lot of areas. In fact, Spain kind of edges Portugal out in terms of most popular expat destinations, the places where expats are happiest. We're actually going to head out to a couple of those cities and check them out for ourselves. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see those videos. But they are very neck and neck. However, at the time, one of the big deciding factors for us is that Spain has a 10-year path to residency, and at the time, Portugal had 5 years, and that was really the tipping point when it came to Portugal versus Spain.
Well, for Italy, why didn't we choose Italy? I mean, Italy is one of my favorite countries. It was very high on my list. I actually wanted this to win.
Yeah, you did.
I did. And, you know, we got married in Italy. We honeymooned in Italy, and I love pizza. And so Italy had a lot of advantages. But like Spain, it had a 10-year path to citizenship as well, which, of course, gave Portugal the edge in that.
Now that brings us to my favorite country and the one that I wanted us to move to, and that is France. In terms of why we would want to move to France, I mean, why wouldn't you want to move to France? It's fantastic. And I think when, we talked about moving to Europe for years and years, and I just imagined myself, in Provence at a market, choosing fresh fruit and putting it in a basket, and that was just kind of my romanticized view. That was really my idea. There's so much to love about France. And similar to Portugal, there is a 5-year pathway to citizenship. I'm not sure if that's still true, but it was at the time. And so this really put Portugal and France neck and neck for us. However, one of the things that was really important to us when we moved, as we mentioned earlier, was safety. And there are a lot of places in France that are very safe. However, there are some issues in some parts of France as well. And we just really liked the idea of living in one of the safest countries in the world, which Portugal is. And so for that reason, Portugal took the edge over France.
But we chose Portugal. So let's recap why we chose Portugal. I mean, the pros, beaches and the climate, the safety and the pathway to citizenship, let alone the cost of living being as low as it is compared to the United States. But some of the cons, of course, well, we really love Italy, Spain, and France, and we would have made, had we ended up in any of those countries, we would have made a great life there. And all of these things are just trade-offs. Now, we didn't really see a lot of negatives to Portugal. We had heard about the bureaucracy being challenging, but honestly, I do think bureaucracy is difficult anywhere, and maybe it's marginally more difficult here, but it's difficult anywhere.
Now, earlier we mentioned that if we were starting the process today, knowing what we know now, there's a couple of things that we would have added to our criteria. I don't know that these would have been deal breakers, but they definitely would be added to our criteria as things to think about. The first one is connectivity, and this is all about how well an area is connected to the rest of Europe, specifically by train. Now, when we first made this move, we didn't think too much about this because we thought, well, we can always hop on a cheap flight or we can always take a road trip. But I took a train from Edinburgh to London and, I think the angels sang. It was so much less stressful than hopping on a flight or taking a long road trip, and we love a good road trip. And so I think we would think about this much differently. Now, let me say that we're about to put that to the test because we're about to visit 4 cities, all by train. So check back with us in a couple of weeks. We may change our opinion on this, but right now I think we would add to our criteria how well is the area that we're looking at connected by train to the rest of Europe.
One of the other factors that we would have added had we been making this decision knowing what we know now would have been the limits in terms of the days out of country that you could have if you were a temporary resident on a visa like we are. Each country is going to have a different limit to the number of days that you could be out of the country. So for example, in Portugal, you can be in your first 2 years of residency here, you can be out of the country 240 days, which sounds like a lot, but over a 2-year span of time, if you have to travel back and forth to the US for any reason, if you have to travel for fun or want to travel for fun, you find yourself wanting to calculate all of these dates to make sure that you're staying inside of the limits that exist. So days out of the country is a thing to sort of keep in mind if you want to be somebody who travels around Europe, or you want to be somebody or need to be somebody who travels back and forth to your home country frequently. And these things are why there is one country, if we were making the decision today about where to move, one more country that we would give solid consideration to.
Now, before we get to that, just a quick reminder that we do have a free weekly newsletter that is filled with resources to help you live, work, and travel abroad over 50. We include a lot of resources there that never make it to the YouTube channel or even our Instagram account. So be sure to use this QR code to sign up. We'll also leave a link in the description below. So the one country that we would add to our list to consider if we were starting the process over today is the Netherlands.
Well, why didn't we consider the Netherlands when we were making our original decision? Honestly, some of it is we didn't know about some things that were true in the Netherlands. And one of those things is a program called DAFT, or the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty. Now, this is a program that's designed for U.S. citizens who want to start or expand their business into the Netherlands. And it makes it very easy and quick in order to not only start your business, but to get residency in the Netherlands. I mean, you can do it virtually immediately. And we have a whole video on how you can do this and frankly, leave the US tonight, be in the Netherlands tomorrow, and gain residency before you ever expire your 90-day visa stay as a tourist.
Now, for a list that includes Portugal, Spain, France, and Italy, the Netherlands might seem like an outlier. After all, the winters are long and dark and cold. Second, it is one of the more expensive countries in Europe. This is not bargain Europe. This is not retire on 1,000 euros per month. Another thing is that taxes are some of the highest in Europe, although DAFT does have some tax advantages. Be sure to check out that video if you want to know more about that. Next, there is a housing crisis in the Netherlands, especially in Amsterdam. And finally, the Netherlands does not offer dual citizenship in most cases with the US. Despite all of this, and that seems like a long list, there are some compelling reasons why we would still add the Netherlands to our list of possibilities if we were starting the process over today.
Well, one of the reasons that it's attractive is connectivity. Dawn mentioned connectivity being a factor we did not consider when we were planning our move in 2023, but Amsterdam is one of the most connected cities in Europe. You can hop on a direct train to Paris or to London or to Berlin. And honestly, you are starting and ending from the middle of the cities. It's just so much more convenient and pleasant to do train travel.
Again, check back in with us in a couple of weeks, see if we still feel that way. Another reason we would consider the Netherlands is the allowance of days out of the country. There is a more generous allowance. I believe it's just under 6 months per year. For us, that's important because we do go back to the US twice a year to see family, and also we love to travel, and that just gives a little bit more freedom and flexibility.
One of the other considerations that we would make now is language. And language in the Netherlands is not an issue if you're an English speaker. Well, they do speak Dutch. The reality is that most people speak English for everyday things. And so if language is a concern for you, it doesn't need to be a concern in the Netherlands if you are an English-speaking person. So if we were starting today to think about where to move, in addition to Spain, Portugal, Italy, and France, we absolutely would put Netherlands into consideration.
But the big question is, would it top our list? After everything we know now, after everything that's changed, would Portugal still be our top choice if we were starting the process over? And how would we actually rank these countries today? You know, originally we were going to do this separately. Matt was going to give his ranking and I was going to give my ranking, but it turns out that we felt the exact same way and we would rank these exactly the same. So starting with number 5, we both agreed this would be France. Tell me why.
Well, so as far as France goes, we still love France. I mean, it's one of our favorite countries to visit. There are a few things that, concern us a little bit. And you could think about safety or the cost of living being a little bit higher than the other places. But generally speaking, France is very, very attractive. It is still in the top 5. So number 4 on our list here is Italy. So Dawn, why is Italy here in the number 4 slot?
Well, like you said earlier, we love Italy. We got married there. We've honeymooned there. We've spent time on the Amalfi Coast, in Tuscany, Florence, a little bit of Rome, and Venice. But I think that for me, I just don't yet have enough information about some of the places that a lot of expats are moving to. I feel like we've done the tourism side of Italy, but we haven't really examined that through an expat lens. We're hoping to change that. We're actually hoping to get to Italy and explore some of those locations and share them with you. So again, be sure to subscribe if you want to see that. I just feel like I don't really have enough information, again, from an expat lens about Italy right now. We love it, and I know you particularly love it, but why did you rate it number 4?
Well, certainly you can imagine sitting at a cafe, drinking cappuccinos, and then eating pizza every night, or at least I could eat pizza every night. But the reality is that at least academically, when you looked at some of the factors comparing Italy to Portugal, Italy just was a little bit behind Portugal when it came to things like cost of living and safety, and it sort of just slid below because of that. But certainly, it would be a great place to live.
It's very close. All of these are very close,
Very
so we
close.
should probably say that. And now that, if Portugal ends up going to a 10-year pathway to citizenship, then they're going to be even closer. So this is sort of like the Olympics, like what separates first, second, and third is just a fraction of a point, but they are things that we considered. So number 3 in our ranking after living here in Portugal for a little more than 2 years is Spain. Tell me why you ranked this number 3.
Well, listen, even since we've been here, we have been to Spain a few times, and there's so many places in Spain that we love. So Basque country, so San Sebastian, it was just amazing. And last year we went to Andalusia and visited several of the cities down there, and Seville and Cadiz are just magical places. I could easily see people making Spain their home. Honestly, for me, and it's probably more for me than it could be for Dawn, I think the climate in Spain is just a little more severe than the climate here that we experience on the Silver Coast of Portugal. Too hot in the summer, I think, would be a drag for me, and maybe in certain places too cold for the winter, but I think the heat in the summer would it would not please me. So Don, you also put Spain in the number 3 slot. Why did you do that?
Well, this Spain actually has moved up quite a bit for me because we have had an opportunity to spend more time there. We'd been there before, again, as tourists. We've been able to go back and really look at Spain through an expat lens and go to Andalusia and up to Basque Country. And again, we're about to head out and see some more areas. I could definitely see us living in Spain. It's a very, very strong contender. And for me personally, I think I would rather live in northern Spain, but like you said, there's so many magical places. Spain is a very, very strong contender.
So we're down to Portugal and the Netherlands. Which one of those 2 countries would you put in the number 2 slot?
I would put the Netherlands. I really do love the fact that it is a central hub and easy to get all around Europe. The fact that they have, trains like we talked about, but even direct flights, which means that flights are less expensive, there's more of them, and you spend less time getting to a place and more time being in a place. All of that said, I think the winters and the cost of living would be more challenging. What about you? Why did you make this number 2?
Well, the Netherlands is impressive. I mean, the architecture and the history is fantastic. And from a business standpoint, if you are considering starting a business or expanding your business into Europe, the Netherlands is a place that makes sense for you to consider because it is set up for businesses as well. Climate-wise, as you said, it's not so great, at least compared to where we live here in Portugal.
Yeah. So if we had to do it all over again today, starting over the process with everything we know and everything that's changed, we're still choosing Portugal. Tell me why this tops your list still today.
Well, listen, I mean, we think about the criteria that we had. It still is a safe country, and it is much safer than, we feel so much safer than we ever felt in the United States. So safety is a big thing. Our experience in healthcare has been really, really good here in Portugal. And so we're very, very happy with that. The climate that we live in, especially here on the Silver Coast, man, it is really, really great to be able to be outside nearly every day in the middle of the afternoon without any concerns of it being too hot or too cold. That is just fantastic. And while it isn't as connected as the Netherlands is, certainly Amsterdam is in terms of train travel or things like that. It is well connected from the airport. You can hop on a plane and get to these things. So while the train travel is not nearly as good in Portugal as it would be in many other countries in Europe, and certainly not nearly as good as it would be in the Netherlands, the fact that that's the thing that is not great, you know, amongst the list of things that are really great, I think I can live with that. How about you?
Well, I think you're right. I think that Portugal still checks every box for us. But I think that for me, after almost 2.5 years, the real test is that we have been fortunate enough to travel around Europe and see some absolutely spectacular places. But I love coming home to Portugal, and I love coming home to the Silver Coast. And I just, no matter where we go, this is the place that I always want to come home to. And, you know, I think that matters. You can check every box, everything can look good on paper, and it does. But at the end of the day, it's where do you want to come home to? And for us, that's the Silver Coast of Portugal.
Well, so those are our rankings based on our criteria and our opinion of things, but we'd love to hear from you. Whether you are planning a move or you've already moved, we'd love to hear how you would rank not only these countries, but other countries that you would consider. Why don't you give us a comment here on this video?
And if you want to learn more about the Silver Coast of Portugal, we have an entire playlist that you can check out here.